The only thing that's different is Martin Lawrence's face is fatter. Hold up, Mike. I gotta catch my breath, Max. I do like chicken sandwiches. Well, who else would you have on the cover of Playboy these days, right? See if you can polish this term. I'm trying to be positive here, Jake.
Okay.
Jake is also available for anniversaries and birthday parties.
I thought you were gonna tell me treat him like cats and sprayed him with a water bottle.
No.
Not enough money behind this podcast to get him on here. Because it's not the kids' fault they're shitheads. It's not. It's the parents' fault. The parents are shitheads too. Why are you talking shit? Have you won anything? No, then shut the fuck up. Wait, nobody ever said there was a plot to Rambo. Delete your account, go back to bed, cry for a couple of days, and reflect on what you're actually going to do with your life.
Join us on the ADG podcast, someone that knows about these Detroit Lions that drive us absolutely insane on everything that they do. Rachel Marie, YouTube blogger, joins us on the ADG podcast. Rachel, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Pleasure. So let's go back to the beginning. Tell us how you got into the whole YouTube blogging about the Detroit Lions.
So I kind of just felt like it was a missed calling. I kind of take it back to, when I was in school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and trying to think of all of the applications of my skills for some reason I totally overlooked, maybe going into some sort of broadcast communications major or something like that, but just figured better late than never. And there's not a lot of things that I am much more passionate about than talking about the Lions, whether it's good or it's bad. So that's kind of what brought me back around to it.
Right. We see a lot of male bloggers, YouTubers talking about the Lions. It gives people a nice perspective when a female blogger gets out and really is informed about this team and what females think about the Lions and what they do and how knowledgeable you are. Do you think that you're kind of like setting the bar when it comes to female YouTube sports bloggers in the Detroit area?
I would certainly hope so. I haven't done a lot of research as to who else is out there. But I definitely pride myself on keeping up with it, doing my research before I put anything online, and just kind of like you said, being knowledgeable enough to where I can talk about it and be a source that people can kind of trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, Darren. That makes sense. And now, as having a niche market, because you can kind of call it a niche market, YouTubing about the Detroit Lions and not exactly the most potent team in the NFL. They're not. I'm sorry. Love this team, but they're just not. Now, like we kind of discussed before the show, so our audience kind of knows, everybody knows from listening to our show, Darren's super nice about this team.
Whoa.
It gets whoa. Okay, I called you a slappy, which it was a little much, but I guess. And you're also very to the point. You give us in your videos a lot of details, exactly what happens. Gives us like all the info we need. But we want to know, since I'm very cynical about this team, even though it's my favorite team. Mm-hmm. We want to know your opinion, honestly, on what's happened the last few years since the Matt Patricia coach hire.
The loaded question.
Oh, yes. Right off the bat. Let's do it.
I was initially pretty excited about the hire, just kind of seeing what he had done with the defense there in New England. And obviously with him coming from a coaching staff with Belichick, who, might be the greatest coach of all time. Originally, I was very excited. And of course, over the past couple of years, I have shook my head, said, what are we doing? Not really seen what their vision is, I guess. It hasn't come across very much just yet. But at the end of the day, the way that I look at it now is that I'm not going to stop rooting for the Lions. So in essence, that means that for the time being, I sort of have to root for Patricia as well. I think his approach in free agency this year kind of gives me a little bit better of an idea of where he wants to go, especially with this defense. But I think if it doesn't work out, the best thing for everybody that really, really, really hates this Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn regime can rest easy because they won't be around anyways.
Exactly. It's safe to say that this upcoming season, 2020, it's pretty much on the line for them to either to make a playoff run or be a playoff contender. Because according to last season and their dismal season, the ownership put out this letter. I'm sure you heard of them that said that we want to be playoff contenders in the year 2020. So it's that much pressure. Do you see them making a really franchise-altering move come the draft? Maybe they take a highly touted quarterback, or do they play it safe, build up the defense, and go from there?
I would personally be very surprised if they did end up taking a quarterback. Not that I don't see the sense that it could make for the future, but I would be really surprised, especially like you said, with that win now mandate. I think the defense was just the huge Achilles heel of this team last season. You know, no matter what the offense did, they could not overcome the fact that the defense was letting up 400 yards a game, you know, whether even when they started becoming a little bit more stout against the run, I mean, they were just getting passed on all day. So I would certainly be surprised if we didn't see them go defense in this first round of the draft, whether that means, you know, they stick with that number 3 pick if a certain someone is still there. Right. Or if they trade back, which I think right now is the popular choice.
Exactly. I think it's, for me personally, it's either you take a certain Chase Young if he happens to fall from 2 to 3. If not, then I would trade back, and then where you could still possibly get the player that you want plus another pick. Because face it, with this team trading away one of their top defensive players, I should say their top defensive players, and Darius Slay for a couple draft picks. That's it's kind of really altering a defense that was horrible to even more horrible right now. So obviously I don't know what they're thinking when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, especially when you have a coach whose calling card is a defensive mastermind.
Well, so. Here's a question. You guys remember where we were here last year at this time after free agency?
Yeah.
You guys remember that time? Put yourself back into that mentality of last year at this time after free agency ended, how we all felt. You know what? This defense might be something. We might actually be really good on defense.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how we felt. Now, comparing all those moves and what happened to the moves that they made this year, and I don't feel good about this. I really don't. I don't think we got better on defense, and that's before the draft, of course.
No, it's going to be more when it comes to putting the right people in place. They obviously want to go in a younger mentality on defense, more depth, because that's what happened last year with all the injuries. They had no depth in their starting defense. They're picking up guys off the streets and just throwing them in there. Because I understand that's what happens in the NFL. You are going to have injuries, but it just hit them like a ton of bricks on both sides of the ball. So Rachel, I want to ask you a question. I think every Lion fan has to be asked when it comes to quarterbacks. Are you a Matthew Stafford fan? Yes or no?
Yes, I definitely am. I'm on the quarterback wins really not being a genuine stat train. I really think that I can't, besides maybe 1 or 2 seasons, and both of those seasons we made the playoffs, I can't really think of any other times that he hasn't just had a train wreck around him, whether it be the offensive line, which used to be a bigger struggle, or the defense, but on either side of the ball, it just seems like, no matter what, it's very hard for him to get it done. And at the end of the day, I think he's still shown that he can, considering he holds the record for the most comeback wins in the fourth quarter in one season in the entire league. So I think that kind of says something.
But and there's a lot of people that says he's been here 11 years. He hasn't won anything that meaningful. And by meaningful, we mean playoff games. And like, when is it for the Lions fan, Lions organization? I know those are two different things, but as a Lions fan, when is enough when it comes to sticking with the quarterback that hasn't done it? You know, that hasn't won the big game, hasn't showed that they can win at the right time.
I think they're at a point in his career where that time just kind of comes when he's done playing, honestly. With the contract that we gave him a couple of years ago, you know, I think the part of the reason that we've got to have this win now mentality, outside of the fact that what we have been doing just hasn't been working, is the fact that it almost seems like we've wasted an incredible quarterback's career not being able to put the correct supporting cast around him. And at this point, I see him retiring in Detroit because I just can't picture any other scenario, or maybe I don't want to. I don't know.
Well, isn't that a typical Detroit mentality where we waste Hall of Famers' careers? I mean, Barry, Calvin
We've
Johnson.
certainly done it, yeah.
Like that's going to be part for the course, and I think for Stafford, if the team doesn't make something a strategic move wise, and they just keep him and go with him until they totally wear him out by not having or giving him what the team needs,
but
like a defense.
But going through this, and I'm asking this as I'm watching a bunch of Tua highlights on
you are
right now.
You are.
I'm just saying, in a draft that is such a quarterback-rich draft, like wouldn't the Lions be stupid? I know that they are stupid, but it would be idiotic to pass on one of these highly touted rookies just to sit behind Stafford for a year. And if Stafford still wants to play, awesome. Maybe that's where you leverage a trade, you know, and you get something for him, because there are teams that are enamored with him and think he still has a lot left in the tank. I know the Patriots are gung-ho all about Matthew Stafford. Dallas loves Matthew Stafford as well. Could you see a scenario where the Lions trade him and at least give him a shot to win somewhere else?
Man.
I know it's a lot to swallow. Yeah.
That's good. It's like I wrote that question for Darren or something. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's another really good question. I'll just say that I would not be surprised by anything that the Lions do, especially something that would upset the entire fan base or a vast majority of the fan base like that. So
yeah.
I really wouldn't be surprised. And I do see the value in taking a younger, talented quarterback and letting them learn from a veteran quarterback, especially one with the skill set that Matthew Stafford has. And I think the mindset that he has as well. But I don't know if I see that being this year, because actually of that win now mandate and the defense just being so much worse than anything that they'd be looking at, you know, for the future on offense.
That's right. Well, we'll see. That's why people need to tune into your YouTube channels for all this insight when it comes to the Detroit Lions. There you go.
Exactly. Now let's look at the mock draft for a second. Now, we all know that only so much that can be done with the third overall pick. We have the first pick. Obviously, is going to be Joe Burrow. Chase Young is definitely going to Washington because they just picked up another quarterback.
Maybe.
So he is. And then, as much as I wish we could get him here in Detroit. Now, number 3, you're very limited now. You either take Tua or you trade down. There's no other option. Personally, for me, what is your take on the? What's Rachel's take on the mock draft? Because Darren is going to yell in a minute.
Well, I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed because the Redskins, I believe, will actually be trading away their veteran offensive tackle, so it could create a need there. And we can pray that maybe Young actually does fall to 3, and I think if he does, it's a given. He's going to be an immediate impact player. So I think there are a lot of us out there keeping our fingers crossed for that to be the case. But if not, I've definitely been preaching in my videos that I'm all for trading down, increasing your draft stock, because I think Isaiah Simmons, Jeff Okudah could still be on the board if, say, the Chargers want to trade up for Tua.
Right. That's true. There's a lot of mock drafts that have them either most likely trading down. It's either one or other. They're either trading down or they're taking Okudah at 3. You mentioned Trent Williams being gone, but let's be realistic. Do you see them really taking on an offensive lineman at 2 at 2nd overall? Probably not. This is. I know. Hey, I have my fingers crossed, just like you. I just don't see it. But yeah, I totally agree that I think if Chase Young is gone at 2, trade down, grab an extra pick, maybe use that extra pick on a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round. Right.
Well,
there you go.
Well, there's no projected tight ends in the 1st round, so I think we might be safe.
Don't have to worry about that. That's the one possession. That's one position we're good at.
Yeah, that was the joke that I was going to make. I'm like, you never know what Washington will do because we've taken so many tight ends in the 1st round. I just can't.
We look at it, and me and Jake like to play this game, future bust or boom. So TJ Hawkinson, do you think he's going to be a future bust or boom?
I think he's going to boom. I do think that he is set for a great career in the NFL. I think
just with another
partially
team.
And it could be with another team. We started off so hot with him last season, and then it's where did he go?
Against Arizona, that was it.
Exactly. So I think he's a really talented kid, and I think he's gonna have a great career ahead of him. Whether or not it's with the Lions, and why we really stopped using him as much last year, I'm not sure, but.
Well, here's a question for you, and I guess it could be for all of us. But since you're our guest today, we're going to start with you. What is your worst case scenario and best case scenario for the draft? Worst case scenario, best case scenario. What could horribly happen? What could they draft piss you off completely? And if they draft, what is your best case scenario for the draft?
Well, the Lions do need a punter. The Lions do need a punter.
Yes.
I saw that. I saw that they need a punter now. That is some sort of worst case scenario somewhere. Yeah. But I think, circling back to what we were just saying, I don't think this is even within the realm of possibility, but the absolute worst case scenario would be them taking some sort of offensive skill player like a tight end in the 1st round. Even if they traded back, that'd be my I think everybody would be incredibly mind blown, but we've been there before.
Yeah.
And best case scenario, Chase Young's there at 3. I'd really like to see him on the edge opposite Trey Flowers and what they might be able to do together, especially that I believe we did strengthen our linebacker core somewhat. We'll really have to see kind of how they use them, but I think Jamie Collins is, even at his age, coming off of a really promising season, considering it's actually been his best season in 4 or 5 years on his return to the Patriots. So we'll have to see what he kind of brings in, but I could see Young on that edge, and if we have a linebacker that can maybe rack up some sacks as well, maybe 7 sacks like he did last season, that'd be amazing.
Right. And that's been the biggest, one of the biggest weakness of Lions is their linebacking core. And everyone thought it was going to be improved with, Gerard Davis finally being healthy, and then Tavai being the new draft guy on the scene. Obviously, Tavai had some bright moments last year, uh, uh,
Mhm.
in his first season. But yeah, you add a veteran guy like Jamie Collins that knows Patricia's defensive style. You know, would you say he's more in the mentor role than kind of like starting all 16 games this year?
Yeah, I would say that, especially because, I mean, some of his comments to the media shows you that he's definitely going to take over a leadership role in the locker room for these younger guys. Um, I believe I saw something this morning where he was saying, "Oh, we're going to start winning like right now."
Mhm.
And that's kind of the mentality that I think that they need to have in that locker room. And if he's bringing it, I'm happy to have it.
Yeah. I just want to get your thoughts on some of the free agency moves that the Lions did make uh, in losing former players. Which one of the former Lions that they did lose in free agency do you think is going to hurt them the most?
Definitely Darius Slay.
Yeah.
That was a rough one for me. I think I even tweeted something along the lines of, I need to practice what I preach and try not to cry when they finalize the deal for Slay. He really has
Yeah.
been one of my favorite Lions players. He's definitely on my list of all-time favorites. I think that's going to hurt, being that Desmond Trufant, from what I can tell, looking at his stats over his career, obviously, we're paying him less money, but he certainly has less accomplishments. Not that
Mhm.
he, by any means, is a bad cornerback. He's certainly still one of the better in the league. But I mean, you can't replace a guy like Darius Slay. He just, there's no separation from him. He's on the receivers like glue. It's insane. I think it's going to be really hard to replace him out there.
Right. I just want to get your thoughts on. I know after he left, he spoke to the media about what it was like working for, playing for Matt Patricia, and how he said that he did not really get along with them, did not agree with anything he really said, and especially after they traded away Quandre Diggs, during the season. I think that's when he lost pretty much all control of the locker room. Just want to get your thoughts on, like, do you really think that the players are willing to play for this guy? Is that the reason why they're not be able to secure free agents to come to Detroit?
Whew, this has been the debate online all week.
Yeah.
So I'm somewhere in the middle on it. First, I definitely think I need to say that I certainly don't think that comments like the ones Slay is talking about Patricia making are necessary. I definitely think that there's a way to coach in that kind of hard style that doesn't necessarily have to insult or tear down your players. But on the other hand, you do see these guys that played for him in New England having this different mentality, or even the players that didn't play under him in New England, but coming from New England, having that different mentality. I think there are players coaches out there, and there are coaches who have these standards that kind of come along with cutting out some of the fun. And whether or not I agree with that, I know that those coaches are across the league. That being said, do I think that Slay would have stayed if we offered him a 3-year, $50 million contract? Probably. So I'm like I said, I'm somewhere in the middle, because I continue to wonder if money could have made that better anyways.
Yeah.
But like I said, I still want to clarify that I'm not defending Patricia's comments or that kind of locker room mentality in any way.
Mhm. Yeah, it's become it's interesting to tell when other people who either used to play for Matt Patricia or just recently left the Lions have to say, and they're all kind of in the same boat when it comes to um, telling how it really is inside the Lions locker room.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you guys enjoy this Lions talk, obviously you guys hear us every week. But besides YouTube, where can everyone follow Rachel Marie Sports to hear everything that Rachel has to say?
You can look for me on Facebook. It's just going to be under Rachel Marie Sports. On Instagram, the tag is at Rachel Marie Sports. And on Twitter, because apparently somebody once upon a time had Rachel Marie Sports, it is at Rach Marie Sports.
Well, there we go. Perfect. And we will definitely share all that on our socials too. And I want to thank you for coming on the show. We love Lion stock. Love them or hate them. That's our team. We got the Stafford jerseys. You know, that's how it works. But sometimes you just got to come down on them and tell the truth. So that's what we try to do too. And Darren's laughing in the background.
What? I
told you he's a slappy.
I agree with you, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Just quick thought, Rach. Thoughts on Tom Brady being a Buccaneer?
Oh, boy.
Oh, man. The first picture I saw in the mock-up with him.
Make the playoffs?
You know, since they're adding another team from each conference, maybe.
Get in by default, right?
But I did laugh at the memes that say, if you weren't with us when we went 7-9, don't start with us when we go 8-8. And somebody says 8-9.
8-9. That's right. That can be that can work for the Lions as well.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show again. We appreciate it. This was fun, and we have to do this again for sure.
Yes, let's.